house in Baltimore and up late out in Anaheim, California. We've had Trout birthdays and Machado bombs and even some decent pitching from the Orioles for a change. They will head to Oakland or Oaklandia or Oaksterdam this weekend for 4 games with the woeful Oakland A's. So much for Moneyball here in 2017. This guy here has studied Moneyball on both sides of the Oakland sports front, from the A's to the Raiders. He is not the Raider hater. He is the black hole guy who is still grieving all of this mess of Las Vegas. I will be in Oakland in early October. This guy has been in Oakland for the better part of a couple of decades. He has a great YouTube channel and social media following all over the country with hundreds of thousands of followers. He is Zennie62. That's Zennie 62 out on Twitter. And Zennie Abraham, one of our defending champions and social media mavens, back on to defend all things Oakland. You can't defend that Oakland A's team right now, though, right?
I can try. Nestor, it's great to be on your show. Great to hear your voice again, my friend. And we're 50-62, and the only good news I can tell you is that the A's are on course to build a new stadium still somewhere in Oakland. I prefer Howard Terminal by Jack London Square because that would have made it easier to keep our Raiders. But they insist on holding us all hostage and proving that our mayor cannot actually point and say, go here, and they will march and go there on the water. But that's a long story. But, yeah, the A's are not doing very well right now. They got rid of Sonny Gray. Moneyball isn't what it used to be. They definitely need more money to get the kind of marquee players that can perform. It's a different era. Absolutely right.
Look, the headline on Facebook Live and YouTube right now says, I'm talking with you on the eve of the Orioles visiting my favorite dump. And I mean that with true love and respect. I'm going out there in October to the Black Hole to see Jack Del Rio, and hopefully the Ravens get the better end of that out on the backside of Pittsburgh, and a trip to London before that. So, it's going to be a busy time, and it'll be interesting to see if Joe Flacco's upright. But, the Raiders are still beloved there. And when I look at the A's and I look at the problems the A's have, and look, we're in the same division with Tampa, there's still a handful of baseball teams out there, truly a handful, that can't figure it out. And the A's are one of them. And the A's are never the team that's going to be moving to Vancouver or Mexico City or Las Vegas or anywhere. It feels like the A's are going to play until eternity, until that circle is like the Rome Coliseum. It'll be 500 years old, and Charlie Finley's uniforms will still be, and they'll have white spikes and gold pants and whatever. It really is amazing that they've lost the football team there, and it's a cautionary tale here in Baltimore.
Not yet.
Okay,
not yet.
Well, go ahead.
Not yet. Okay. Since we talked, in fact, this is a great kind of update from your last interview with me on April 3rd of this year, where we were talking post the NFL annual meeting when the 31-1 vote came down and allowing the Raiders to basically have set up 2 homes, one in Oakland and ostensibly one in Las Vegas. But since then, a legal movement has started called Forever Oakland. We stand for Oakland, and they have actually hired, and I don't mean this is a concept, this is actually true. They've hired James Quinn, a top lawyer in sports who's actually beaten the NFL several times in court, and Eric Hofstad. They're both antitrust experts. They're on retainer, and they've been talking with the city of Oakland and the county of Alameda, but it's a citizen-driven initiative, not calling for any tax money. On September 15th, the JPA will decide officially how they're going to get involved with the citizen-driven initiative, and it's very powerful.
We've never seen one of these blocked, by the way. I mean, so I remember everything that went on with Chernoff and Irsay and Hudnut and all that stuff in 1984 when I was a kid and working at the newspaper, and eminent domain was also, brought in at that point. They've never been able to stop any of these things. I mean, these guys kind of go where they want to go, and I'm sure Nevada and their state legislature would have something to say about that after the thing's signed, sealed, delivered.
Maybe not. There's a huge good faith issue that forms what I call a day of reckoning that must be done, and I could talk for several hours about the Raiders' history with this and my own personal history with this at the NFL owners meeting, which has been on video, and they put poor NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell in a really terrible spot because Oakland has a great history. But that aside, the simple fact of the matter is this thing has to be decided somewhere in court. The media has reported there's some sort of chase for the image, like a la the Cleveland Browns. It is not that at all. In fact, no one really knows how they're going to fashion their attack legally, but it's not the Cleveland Browns attack. Media has put this up as a straw person, and so it can't work for A, B, C, D reason. Folks, that's not true. They have not decided to go in that direction at all. But I will tell you, Nestor, regarding eminent domain, something that people do not know, but I say to this, learn to read the outcome of the 1983 California Supreme Court decision, which did say that eminent domain could be applied and still today can be applied in a situation of a sports organization. What the court did in that instance was remand or transfer the decision to the lower appellate court, and with this proviso, you come up with the reason why eminent domain would work. Then Oakland said, well, it was recreational space, but today the vast difference is that it's economic. They've spent money, bond issue money. There are a lot of precedents here to be set that have never been set before. Remember, Nestor, there's a first time for everything. A first time. So the league should be very concerned about where this is headed.
Well, you say a first time for everything. I think the league, the night I saw you in Phoenix, the day they moved the team, and we were out there, and I'm running around with Del Rio and Silver and all these other people with incredible Oakland, backgrounds. I'm from Baltimore. I was in Cleveland the day they tore the stadium apart out there when the Browns were moving to Baltimore back in December of 1995. And I really do wonder how this is going to play once 40, 50, 60,000 rowdy Raider fans get together in a couple weeks out there during the regular season. What it's going to look like when the Ravens come in there, because I will be on that trip.
They're going to be very supportive, but here's the problem. Let's shift our gears for Vegas. There's another issue with that land that was bought for $77 million. Do you realize, and I discovered and reported on Zenny62.com, that land is in the middle of a flood zone? That's right. It is. I found a map that goes back. It was adjusted 2002, Nestor, and it is reported that that property is in a special flood control area. Now, last week Las Vegas had floods, and the question is, you're going to take 62 acres, pave it over. You're finding more for parking. How are you going to deal with drainage? How are you going to deal with the water spilling over in the properties across the street, across Polaris Avenue, across Russell Road, and other areas around it, not to mention people trying to get there if you take what happened in Las Vegas last week and earlier this year as an example.
Zenny, do they have a shovel in the ground there in Vegas yet?
No.
They do not. I did not know that.
It's preliminary for November. But get this, Nestor, there are 13 documents to be done. They've only finished one. That is the main lease, but it's a contingent lease on a number of other things. For example, the negotiations which are ongoing with the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, which Nevada's new law that covers this whole stadium issue says is supposed to be shared with the NFL team, which is the Raiders, but the Raiders have been treating them like a stepchild, much to the chagrin of a number of UNLV alumni. So UNLV went out, hired their own high-powered New York sports lawyer 2 weeks ago, and they're in negotiations. UNLV can actually stall out these negotiations, and if these documents are not done by October 17th, and really the final drop dead date is April of 2018, guess what? UNLV winds up being able to control the entire stadium project. That's the way it's written.
He is Zenny Abraham. Zenny62 is the way to follow him out on Twitter. I called him to actually talk about the A's, although I know there's not much to talk about with the A's, but the Orioles are in Oakland this weekend. I said Zenny62, didn't I?
We were 50 and 62, the A's.
50 and 62. Yeah, well, right. I mean, they'll have more losses by the time we get there. Don't worry about it. So, but we're going out there in a couple of weeks, and on top of all of this, Zenny, the weird part is the Raiders have been so bad for so long when the old man was dying out there. They're actually good now. That makes it even worse. I mean, it was bad enough losing the Colts here, but at least they stunk when they left. I mean, really.
Yeah, they're good on paper, but here's the thing. Again, everything here is conditional. I know there's this idea that, okay, well, they are gone. They're not. The headquarters is still in Alameda, which I might add was bought by the taxpayer. They still are hiring for jobs in Alameda, not just Vegas. And the only ones that jobs they're hiring for in Vegas are community-related. I believe that's 1 or 2 positions as opposed to 4 or 5 or 6 in Alameda. So the Raiders are definitely playing, as they say, both sides of the fence. And as Mark Davis himself recently said, if we can get a deal done. And there's a lot of big ifs. It's not just UNLV. They have problems with the construction people. The laborers have strife. The people can't get along there, reasons of race and everything else, which would never have happened in Oakland in a long, long time. You'd think that they've gotten over those problems, but in Las Vegas they have it, in Nevada and Oakland they have. You cannot fit a square peg of a stadium in a round hole of an area that is not ready for it. It requires $1 billion in transportation upgrades off-site to adequately handle.
And it's in California. We got to mention that part too, right?
Yeah, and then not only that, it's like, yeah, and see, that's the thing. Where the Coliseum is in Oakland, for all of its issues regarding water drainage, which are internal and fixable, the property and the highways can fit the traffic they have already. In Las Vegas, that is not true, and it's the subject of a lot of talk because basically it's an example of bad planning. It can't be done without a large expenditure. And then here's the thing, Nestor. Here's the big issue. The Raiders have 2 agreements they have to sign. They're non-relocation agreements. Why? Because those non-relocation agreements, once signed, unlock over $1 billion in debt. $750 million, actually over that, $1.5 billion, with respect to the subsidy that goes in the stadium from the Clark County hotel tax increase, and then the other is the Bank of America commercial loan for $850 million.
Yeah, I read all about the Sheldon Adelson. That was a great story, you must admit, right? Who knew Mark Davis had such smart lawyers?
Oh, right, but here's the thing, okay? Adelson backed out knowing the economics, knowing the problems. He may even have known that that property that they bought was in that flood area because it's not such that you can easily tell this. There are 4 parcel numbers. You only run one of the parcel numbers. Say that 3 times real fast in the test system, and it comes up not in the flood zone. But if you don't run all 4 of them, you don't know it. And if you don't get the map that I have, you think everything's hunky-dory. And then you get the map that I have, and it turns out, hey, it is a flood zone, and you've got a huge problem. All right,
Zenny, on top of all of this mess that's going on for your homeland of Oaklandia, and I've said I don't think the baseball team's going anywhere. You know, it feels to me like they'll just play in that dump until they won't. And both of those teams have done this now for 30 years longer than Memorial Stadium was around in Baltimore.
Well, the big problem,
and it's the same stadium, you know?
It's a big problem. We have lost. I've worked for 2 of the last 5 mayors of Oakland. The current mayor is my god sister, although, you know, we've got to patch some things up between us that really happened during the Raiders issue. We have lost the will and the initiative in Oakland to complete big projects. It is an enormous problem. It shows up in this instance. We don't have an adequate convention facility we have in years. We built one in 1988, and we never expanded it. And meanwhile, the world is changing around us in Oakland, and we're still trying to figure it out. We've got a government that doesn't know how to use the redevelopment tools and other tools that were established by the same Oakland government in the state of California years ago. It's really a tragedy. And,
well, you're about to lose really the Warriors, which was my next I was going with this, is no one will notice if you're watching games on TV. You'll see a new shiny arena and all that around the country, but
au contraire, my friend, we will notice because you'll
notice because you're there.
But you'll hear people say, well, from San Francisco, the Golden State Warriors versus the Los Angeles Lakers, but you won't hear Oakland. And according to my calculation alone, remember I tried to bring the Super Bowl to Oakland for the 2005 Super Bowl. We lost to Jacksonville in 2000. But we get about a total of, or gotten $1.5 billion in ad revenues we didn't have to spend just by people like yourself and me in the media saying, hey, the Oakland Raiders, okay? Anyone who hears that, little kids in particular who are NFL fans who wonder about places like Oakland, they're curious to look it up. That's a plus for Oakland. We lose that. San Francisco gains that. Joe Lacob told me in my interview with him in 2012 at that party at Pier 32 that the media mistook for a groundbreaking for the arena that San Francisco was aggressive and Oakland was not. And Oakland was, he said, leadership challenged. And that has not changed today. That is sad.
He is Zenny62 out on Twitter, all things Oakland and the NFL draft, and does some social media as well as some social influencing. You can follow him at Zenny62 on Twitter and Zenny62blog.com. Hey, man, it's always great to catch up with you. I will definitely throw you a note right around week 4 when I get back from Londinium, and we'll talk some Raiders that week and see how Black Jack's Raiders are stacking up. And, hey, I must say, I'm a little worried about them on the field, off the field, all that stuff. But I'm always worried about a team that lost its quarterback the way they did. I don't think you just pop back up and hit restart where you were last year and just think you're going to win 12 or 13 games with the quarterback coming back from that injury.
The hype around us is too great, and I am sorry that Derek Carr made these pronouncements about Super Bowls. He's got the highest contract in the NFL, and basically they're setting themselves up for a big fall. The roster was released. Andy Vanderdoss is going to be an excellent defensive tackle, but I am concerned about that defensive scheme because I don't agree with the idea of two-gapping. That's as opposed to single-gapping and running through the offensive line person you're assigned to. But my point is that the Raiders have to focus on football as the players and not about talking about winning before it happens. That's a bad sign right there in and of itself. It's not like the rest of the league is standing still, you know what I mean?
Well, if you need a backup quarterback, Colin Kaepernick's available. So.
Yeah, I'm going to say, what's going on with you guys and Colin Kaepernick?
Oh, dude, it's a mess around. Well, the Ravens don't need Colin Kaepernick, so it's a little different than the Dolphins who lost their quarterback. Flacco's had a backache for a week and a half. Mallett's been here 2 years, so as much as it's a nice talking point and the owner had to talk about it, and Kaepernick's goofy girlfriend tweeted out, slave owner stuff to Steve Bisciotti, I have a distinct feeling that Steve Bisciotti will not be.
My head.
Yeah, that's sort of over with here, I would think, and it should be over with because if I were Steve, I wouldn't sign his ass either. But it doesn't play well. But I championed Kaepernick 2 weeks ago, and I have no problem with his quarterbacking skills, and I hope he gets a job. I think he deserves to get a job, but he has been his own worst enemy. His girlfriend,
do you think he gets the idea that, hey, look, his personal brand is conflicting with the NFL's personal brand or corporate brand? I mean, that's where we're at right now. He has basically rebranded himself in a way that, look, as an African-American male who has been the victim of police brutality myself, I completely understand. We all have tearful stories, okay? In my case, I was body slammed on a car for no reason by a guy. He lied about it, and we asked him to come to court, and he ducked it. That was 2006, okay?
They have video cameras now for that sort of thing, but go ahead.
Exactly. But the bottom line is, yes, there's a problem, and, the NFL is being harmed by that problem. That's something we could talk about, forever.
No, that's the next topic.
Here's the thing. Colin Kaepernick has to understand and respect, however, that the NFL has its own brand to protect, and he impacts the livelihood of other players when he takes off on his own personal, if you will, flight fancy like that. And I'm not trying to diss him in any way. I'm only pointing out a fact that you and I agree with,
Hey, man, we can talk next time about that. Hey, great having you on. I hope you're doing well, and I hope to see you out in Oaklandia. Our flights are booked, and I will say this about Oakland. I always fly into Oakland. I never fly into San Jose. I never fly into San Francisco. But that being said, I shouldn't say never. I have put my head on a pillow in Oakland a couple of times, recently actually, but I've never stayed in downtown Oakland. I've never gotten off the BART on 12th Street, and I have a room this time.
Are you staying in Oakland?
I have a room there.
Hey, we got to go to Lake Chalet. And have lunch or dinner over there. That's a great place. In fact, if you remember Lake Chalet, it was the scene of a number of finals parties, NBA finals parties and events during the last NBA finals. Heck, what am I talking about? The last 3 years in a row. So
all they do is win championships there. That's all they do in Oakland.
That's right.
I should have said that. Zenny Abraham of the world champion Golden State Warriors hometown of Oakland. I didn't do that. Okay, Lake Chalet. I'm googling that right now. Lakeside Drive, Oakland, California.
Yep.
I'm looking for some new things. Oh, right next to China. Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on for a second.
Right next.
There's a lake in downtown Oakland? I did not know that.
Lake Merritt is Lake Merritt is right in the middle. It's 3.
Dude, I thought Lake Merritt was a stop on the BART. I didn't know it was like a real place.
No, it's a real place. Not only like my friend and yours, Brian McCarthy of the NFL, has actually ran the lake. He'll tell you about it.
Why? You know, my wife. Why don't we know about the good? You know what? I might stay in Oakland this time. Like you're
stay in Oakland.
All right.
Stay in a beautiful town.
All right.
Stay in Oakland. It's not Brooklyn either. And we have a section called Brooklyn, okay? But we are not an appendage of San Francisco. We are our own city.
We have a Brooklyn suburb here, too.
Man. We're the town. Oakland's the town.
Love you, Zenny. Thanks for coming on, brother. We'll see you soon.
Too, man.
You got it, man. Zenny62 is the way to find him out on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat. He's everywhere I am. He's a real social media dude, including out on YouTube. You can find me in the Buy a Toyota audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio. I'm still staring at the Google map, and I almost want to call my wife in and say, do you know there's a lake in downtown Oakland? I had no idea. I've always been afraid to get off the BART, to be honest with you. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.